You know, there's this book out there that for millions of Muslims all over the world is a daily guide, a huge source of inspiration. It's a text that has quietly shaped entire communities, from India to South Africa to the UK, and yet it remains a subject of some pretty intense discussion. We are talking about Fazail-e-Amaal.
I mean, just think about that for a second. That's a huge claim. When you think of bestsellers, maybe you think of novels or poetry, but some scholars argue that this collection of Islamic teachings actually holds the title for the most popular ongoing publication in all of Urdu literature today. So what is it about this book that gives it such an incredible reach?
All right, so what is this book exactly? Well, the name itself, Fazail-e-Amaal, translates to virtues of deeds, and that's the key right there. Its core purpose isn't to lay out a bunch of dry legal rulings. It's all about inspiration and motivation. And it's the central text for the Tablighi Jamaat, which is this global grassroots movement focused on spiritual renewal.
To really get our heads around this book, we're going to break it down into 4 parts. First, we'll look at how it began as a guide for millions. Then, we're going to peek inside at its unique structure, its blueprint for virtue. After that, we'll trace its journey from India to the rest of the world. And finally, we'll dive right into the fascinating debates it has sparked over the years.
So, first things first, how did this book even come to be? Well, its creation story is totally central to its purpose.
See, this wasn't a book that was just written on a whim. It was actually commissioned by Ilyas Kandhlawi, the founder of the Tablighi Jamaat movement. He wanted a standard curriculum, something for his followers to use. In fact, its original name was Tablighi Nisab, which literally means curriculum for Tabligh. These different booklets, written over decades, were finally gathered together into the collection we know today back in the 1950s.
Okay, but to really understand its impact, we have to look at how it's put together. How is it actually designed to inspire people on such a massive scale?
The book has this very clear, methodical approach. Every chapter, whether it's about prayer or charity or something else, is built like a persuasive argument that's aimed straight at the heart. It kicks off with the ultimate source, the Quran. Then it layers on the sayings and actions of the Prophet Muhammad, the Hadiths. And finally, it brings it all home with these inspiring stories from the lives of early Muslims and scholars. It's a really powerful 3-step formula.
Now here's a really crucial point. While that structure is typical, the author wasn't super rigid about it. But there's another detail here that is so important, and it's going to come up again later. The book generally doesn't tell you the scholarly grading, the level of authenticity of the hadiths that it quotes. And that specific choice is absolutely central to the whole conversation around this book. So, from this curriculum designed in India, the book went on this incredible journey across the globe. How did it spread so far and wide? Well, the key was translation. The first English version came out way back in 1960. Then, over the next few decades, you see new editions popping up from these major hubs of the Muslim diaspora, places like Lahore and Johannesburg. Each new version, like that simple English one from 1995, was really an effort to make the text easier to connect with for a whole new generation of readers. And its reach went way, way beyond just the English-speaking world. The book's message clearly resonated everywhere, leading to translations in languages like French, Turkish, and Bengali. And this wasn't just about swapping out words, it was about adapting the book for completely new cultures. And the Bengali version is a perfect example of this. Its history is fascinating, starting way back in the 1940s. But what's really telling is that a brand new edition just came out in 2023. And this version specifically includes the authenticity level of each hadith, which is a direct response to some of the scholarly debates that have surrounded the book for years.
Which brings us perfectly to our final section. Because, let's be real, a book this influential, with such a unique approach, was bound to spark a serious legacy of debate.
But to understand the debate, you first have to grasp just how profound its positive impact has been. Just listen to this quote from the respected scholar Abul Hassan Ali Nadwi. He said that no other literary series has had a greater influence on moral and spiritual reform. I mean, for its followers, this is a life-changing guide.
So that begs the question, right? If it's so beloved and has transformed so many lives for the better, what's the source of all the controversy?
Okay, so the debate really boils down to the authenticity of the hadiths that are used. On one side, critics argue that the book contains weak or even fabricated narrations. They worry this could lead to incorrect beliefs or practices, sometimes called bid'ah or religious innovations. Some go so far as to call it misguiding. But on the other side, defenders, including the author himself, push back hard.
They insist there are no fabricated narrations, and they argue that using weak hadiths is totally acceptable in a specific context, inspiring people to do good deeds, just as long as you're not talking about core beliefs or laws.
Now, this defense isn't something they just came up with. It's actually rooted in a very long scholarly tradition. The majority of classical scholars were okay with using weak narrations for encouragement, as long as there was a clear line drawn between fundamentals of faith and law versus topics meant for spiritual motivation. Supporters love to point out that even the great Imam al-Bukhari, who is famous for his super-authenticated collection, included weak narrations in a different book of his that focused on manners and ethics.
And so, you're left with this fascinating duality. Fazail-e-Amaal is, at the same time, a transformative spiritual guide for millions and the subject of ongoing, intense scholarly debate. In a lot of ways, its story is really the story of modern faith itself, that tension between tradition and critique, and the challenge of navigating religious texts in our globalized world.
Ultimately, its whole journey leaves us with a really powerful question to think about. How does one book's path, from a simple curriculum in a small town in India to becoming this revered and debated text on the global stage, mirror the complex, challenging, and deeply personal nature of faith in our modern world?